Welcome to Real Estate Focus. I'm Calvin Law. Our topic is asbestos removal and mold remediation. With me here today is Ken Fertney. He is the president of New England Service Maintenance. New England Service Maintenance specializes in asbestos removal and mold remediation. The company has been in business since 1989, and Ken has 28 years of experience as a professional, and he is the owner of the company as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Calvin.
And I'm sure that a lot of people are curious about this topic as well, because a lot of asbestos found in certain homes.
Absolutely.
Or property, and also especially mold, where they could be found in basement as well.
Basements and attics.
Attics, that's right. Anywhere that has water.
That's correct.
Right. So, okay. So the first question is, what is asbestos?
Asbestos is a natural mineral that's mined from the ground. It's used for a number of different things. Insulation, number one. Heat resistant, but also very dangerous. It's a very dangerous fiber, very sharp, and it can be inhaled in the lungs or ingested. So that's what makes it so dangerous.
I see. So, in terms of asbestos, where can they be found?
It's actually it's mined, but it's not mined anymore. But it can be found in all different building materials. Pipe insulation, boiler insulation, siding, roofing, glazing, caulking, a number of different things in homes and businesses.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's when most people will see them.
Yes.
So yeah, and based on the areas that you just described, and in terms of removing asbestos, I mean, can a homeowner, like myself, be able to remove the asbestos, or they have to hire a professional to remove something like this?
There is a couple circumstances where they can remove their own, being shingles on the side of a house, but they essentially have to become a asbestos contractor for that project. And they have to abide by all the rules and regulations that we abide by, which for most people is very daunting. They might try it and then call us and have us do the job. They still have to dispose of it correctly. There's a lot of the materials that we use, machinery that we use, that they just don't have. So, but some people do it, but roofers, we'll see them do it sometimes with roofs and siding. But those are the only two really that you will see homeowners are trying to do it themselves.
And in terms of, after the asbestos get removed, where do they get disposed? I mean, do they need to dispose with a certain dump sites or companies?
It has to go to an EPA-approved sanitary landfill or DEP-approved. It's all through an Environmental Protection Agency, and that is we used a landfill in Waynesburg, Ohio. A lot of landfills are out that way, so you can't just bring it to your local transfer station or
you
dump.
might get fined for it, right?
You might get in a lot of trouble for that.
A lot of trouble for
yes,
that.
yes,
I see.
Absolutely.
Is that part of the environmental pollution, if you will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and in terms of asbestos roofing and also siding materials, I mean, can it be dumped into an open top dumpster?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. No.
Right.
It's
Okay.
against the law.
Okay. That is called code violation as well.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of code violations in this industry.
Too many, right?
No.
Yeah. So
Just have to know them all.
Yeah, keep yourself in check, if you will.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, and
That's
your
correct.
staff as well. Yeah. So, another question is that if I have asbestos around the pipes or certain areas, like the pictures here in the basement. I mean, what should they do? Should they just contact a professional, or should they just check it out first, or what?
Well, these pictures up here are obvious pictures of asbestos pipe insulation that's in really bad shape, and they shouldn't go anywhere near it. They should obviously call a professional. the first picture with the joint insulation there, where there's just a little bit of debris left on there, it's obvious that that was probably fell off or at some point, so there's debris on the ground, so it would have to be properly cleaned up, as well as the rest of it removed properly. The other insulation pipes are the same, they're in disarray as well. And then the sign on the bottom is a sign that we have to post on all of our asbestos projects to any entrance to the area, so to keep people out that don't have the proper training or a respirator, things of that nature.
So when people found asbestos in their pipes or certain areas around the house or on top of the house, should they leave those alone? I mean, do they?
They should probably have it removed, especially if it's in bad shape. If it's in good shape, you can maintain it. You can cover it by encapsulation. Yeah, exactly. Right. Encapsulation isn't always a great idea. You still have the problem. You still have the asbestos, and then if you had a pipe leak down the road and a plumber came in, he's not able to do anything until maybe an emergency asbestos removal is done, which is more costly to do than a full removal. So as far as just leaving it alone, as long as it's in halfway decent shape, it's probably okay. But you know, if you're going to sell your house or something of that nature, you're going to have to address it.
I see. Okay, good to know. And on top, on the graphics,
these are just different forms of asbestos. Pretty bad types here that can get into your lungs and do some pretty bad damage.
Especially little fibers.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why they cause lung cancers.
Right. Asbestosis is a scarring in the lining of the lung, and then obviously the other cancers that go along with it.
This will affect to most people who, are heavy smokers.
Exactly, because that breaks down the cilia, and it lets things enter into your lungs a lot easier. So yes, it does.
Okay, we don't need to get too technical for that.
No.
We should leave it up to the doctors, if you will.
That's right, exactly.
And okay, so when removing asbestos in the home. Does the homeowner need to vacate the home or need to leave the home?
No, not necessarily. In some instances, depending upon where the asbestos is, it would be, maybe you would have to move out. But for the most part, asbestos is generally found in the basements for these homeowner jobs, and that whole room gets contained. It's under full containment procedure where you have a shower unit, you have a negative air machine, there's no danger at all. And as long as it's done properly, it is then air tested afterwards by an independent firm, so you have that to go. It's very safe to be in the home, as long as it's done properly.
Right. And after the asbestos got removed, do you send out some sort of reports or?
Well, there's no report. What our company does is we generate a letter of completion that just states what we did when we did it and where the asbestos was disposed of, who does the air testing. There's an air test report, and then the final piece of paperwork for the homeowner would be a manifest that states that the asbestos was disposed of properly in an EPA-approved landfill.
And of course, it is in conformity with code as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's important to know. And the next topic is mold. The next question is, because a lot of people found molds in their homes, especially like around windows, basements, any moisture, in the basement, if you will. So, I mean, can they remove themselves?
Something small scale, they might be able to. Generally, anything large scale, like these pictures up top here, are a pretty bad mold situation where a good portion of that sheetrock wall was going to have to be removed, and you might even find it higher up because that's coming through. The picture on the bottom is a gentleman performing a moisture meter test on a wall that they're not sure there's any mold in there yet because it hasn't come through. But for somebody to clean something that's big like that, I would say no. I would hire a company to do that.
Right.
We do all our work as far as mold goes, similar to an asbestos project, so it's under containment and it's very safe so that the mold spores aren't spread throughout the house. So.
Right. Okay, that makes sense because those look like big projects.
Yes, that's pretty dangerous stuff right there, and that can affect a lot of different people.
Right. And you don't know what's behind that.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, in terms of mold, after the mold get removed, I mean, could they be returned?
It can. You know, reasons for mold is moisture, poor ventilation, so humidity levels. So you have to make sure you take care of those problems as well. In the area where the mold was, it can come back. There is chemicals that are sprayed that you don't want. It's supposed to fight it from coming back, but if you introduce moisture back into that area, it absolutely has a great chance of coming back. So.
And in terms of, let's go back to asbestos removal a little bit. Now, there are certain uniforms that you should wear.
Absolutely.
So if you could please put up the graphics that, you know, what the uniforms will look like, you know, when removing
So this
asbestos.
is a full Tyvek suit with the boots on it and the hood, and a person's in a respirator, and that's a proper a uniform for being inside an asbestos removal area, containment we call it. So the magenta color filters are what you want to see. So that's a good suit right there.
So they shouldn't wear those regular masks.
Paper masks?
Yeah,
No,
right.
they don't filter out
Right.
anything. Number one. Number two, they're illegal.
Illegal.
So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like you got to follow some strict guidelines,
Absolutely.
if you will. So,
Absolutely.
And also there's certain graphics, you know, with mold removal as well.
So this is 3 pictures of some mold remediation. If you see the gentleman in the middle, he's holding just some board that they had taken down, and he's got the full respirator on, which is even a little bit more of a respirator than the one we had seen previously. That was a half face. And you can see the damage in the wallboard once they take it off. That's the other side of the wallboard. So there's quite a bit of mold there. So as it might be only a couple of feet up that you can see, once you open the wall up, you can see that that's up almost 6 feet. So sometimes it requires all the walls in a basement, for instance, where you've got a lot of humidity and moisture. That all has to be removed, and then the final areas, you know, the 2x4s or the metal studs there would have to be thoroughly cleaned with a biocide or a fungicide, and then treated with a few other chemicals.
Right. Depends on where the water came from.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If the water leak from all the way from the top of the roof, then, you know, all the way down to the basement, then it's going to be a big issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's important to know as well. Now, in terms of mold removal or remediation, I mean, are there any regulations in Massachusetts?
Unfortunately, there isn't any, and so there's a lot of people out there that don't have any training whatsoever in mold remediation. We do, but it's not required.
Right.
So there is no regulation, so you have to be very, very careful and make sure you check out the companies that you hire for your mold remediation.
Right. And will there be any soon?
I don't believe so.
Right. Okay. So, and also, now, you said there are no regulations, but do you have to be licensed to remove the mold?
No, you don't.
Okay,
no, not at
no
all.
license at all. No
There's
regulations.
no license. There's
Okay.
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
So I know it's scary.
Especially when you deal with health hazard.
Well,
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
mold can affect infants, pregnant women, elderly people, people with asthma. So you're really you're messing with something there
Yeah.
that's can really affect people.
Right.
So again, if you're going to hire somebody, make sure that you really check their company out,
Right.
and that they know what they're doing.
So having said that, I think you know, the mold remediation is going to be depends on training instead of, you know, more education towards, you know, the professionals.
True.
If you will. So because.
Well, we actually, in our company, we all went. We were all trained. We went. We did mold courses, and a lot of companies have done that.
Right,
And it's
right.
but a lot of people that just try to get into the industry to kind of make a fast buck,
Right.
they don't do the training, and they just kind of learn it as they go along.
Oh.
And again, it's something that's
Right.
can be serious to people's health.
Yeah,
So
right,
it's
right,
you have to be careful.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. So, and I know that you know, in certain areas that could cause mold, but where have you seen the molds grow? I mean, where do you usually find those molds in a home or property?
Well, it's generally where moisture has been introduced. So. 2 of the primary areas are the basement. This is below ground level. People don't have their dehumidifiers running, or maybe water was introduced into the basement, in a finished basement where you see mold on the walls, on the ceilings, or maybe even a house that's sat dormant for a while. And in the attics, poorly ventilated attics, in the summertime, when you've got all that humidity, you see a lot of mold up in attics.
Right.
And then sometimes when around windows that aren't properly installed, or they're old windows, and you see that moisture around them, and people don't take care of them, so then it runs down the wall a bit, and now you get mold on that floor. But the two primary areas are the attics and the basement.
Basement, okay.
Yeah.
So what you alluded to is it's not the properties that near the coast. I mean, it could be, inland as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay. And how does mold grow? I mean, I know that it's a simple question, but it could be more than that.
Well, it's a living organism, and it feeds on things like sheetrock or the back end, the sheathing on the roof. Sheetrock, it loves sheetrock, and then it grows and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's where your mold problem happens. And a lot of this happens behind walls, so that you don't see it for a while. And then by the time it comes out, it's grown so much that it becomes a greater problem.
I see. So you better treat them first before they get bigger.
Well, sometimes you just don't know, because you have some moisture in behind a wall that's that's a finished wall, and you just didn't know it. Maybe something came in through your foundation or something. So
I see. Interesting. So, and we talk about this now. How long does the mold removal process take? I mean, if a big project versus a small project?
Well, sometimes it's a day. For the most part, a lot of mold remediation projects in homes are about a day. And attics can be maybe two days, depending upon how much cleaning you actually have to do up there. Large-scale jobs where maybe it's a good-sized home where the entire basement might have mold contamination, and you'd have to take out all the sheetrock and all the insulation, maybe the ceilings, and then clean everything. You could get into 3 or 4 days on some of them. But primarily between a day and 2 days.
Okay. And what about removing asbestos? I mean, and let's say if people call your company and they say, Ken, I'd like to schedule for asbestos removal. What is the process and how long would it take?
Well, first thing we do,
get out there and
first thing we do is we'd go out and take a look at it, and we're pretty proactive on that. We'd be there generally the next day or even that day to take a look at it and give a proposal. And then if they choose to hire us, we put in a notification to the state, which is a 10 business day notification, which is really about 13 days because of the weekend. So you figure on a couple of weeks. So you're waiting a couple of weeks. In some situations, there's an emergency. There's a pipe break. It's the middle of the winter. Your boiler's broken and you have no heat. You can file for an emergency waiver through the Department of Environmental Protection, and they're pretty good about it. And they just want to know the reason, and so at that point, we can be there as early as the same day or the next day, and to do that for them.
I see. So basically, it might take a couple of weeks for you to get out and
generally a couple of weeks for the actual removal.
And how long will it take you to remove all the asbestos?
It depends on how much you have.
I see.
And that's generally, in a home, it's generally a 1-day project.
1 day? Wow,
yes,
that's quick.
It could go 2, but for the most part, most homes we do, they're done in 1 day.
I see. So based on your experiences, I mean, I know it's a broad question, but where have you seen homes that with a lot of asbestos in the basement?
In the Northeast. People with the more insulation on their pipes, colder climates, you see a lot. With the type we do, which is for the heating systems. So the Northeast is full of it. So
I see. And basically those asbestos usually in the basement, around the pipes, or in the furnaces?
That's the primary area that you see it in, but it's also in, again, a lot of asbestos shingles, asbestos roofs. If you're taking a building down, you're demolishing a building, you have to do a survey. That's a NESHAP survey, National Institute for Emissions Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants. And you have to sample all the materials in the building to make sure they don't have asbestos. So you can find asbestos in window caulking, window glazing, joint compound in your sheetrock, vermiculite insulation in your attics, which is a popcorn-looking insulation that a lot of people have in this area. and it measures anywhere between 6 and 12 inches in the attic, and it was put in the bays.
Right.
And even if you're just going to put in a skylight in your house, now you've got to remove a certain portion of it at least before you go through the roof. Or if you're selling your house, a lot of times people say, well, now we've got to remove this before we can do that.
Right. And I know that some people have asked me, especially homes where they have asbestos in the basement and also asbestos siding as well. And they asked me, when the asbestos started to use to insulate the pipes, or for shingle as well outside the homes. I mean, those were used since 1900.
Oh yeah, like it goes back quite a while.
Right.
Now they were supposed to stop using it in the 70s. But that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have asbestos in your home.
Right.
And a lot of times we find too, and an older home is sold, and you'll look through it and you'll say, well, it doesn't look like we have any asbestos, but because there's maybe a new linoleum in the kitchen, but then you find out that they put it over an old linoleum, which has asbestos.
That's
so it can kind of hide anywhere.
Right.
And even into the 80s, you see some of the houses that have it, because when they outlawed it, it doesn't mean people didn't still sell it, or maybe had some sitting around in their home that they decided to put someplace in the home after that. So you're not absolutely sure. It's always good to have it tested. I mean, unless your house was built, in the 90s or something, you're probably okay. But but it's always good to test.
Right. And also, when it comes to asbestos, now those asbestos, I mean, are usually like sort of like white stuff wrap around the pipes. I mean, have you seen other asbestos that's different than the ones that we just show in the graphics?
Oh yeah. Okay. It's in a lot of different things.
Right.
You would never think it. It's like caulking is one of them. You pick up a piece of caulking that goes around a window, or glazing, and you would think it doesn't, but it has a small percentage in it. The vermiculite insulation looks like popcorn, very light. People have rock wool in their attics that doesn't contain it. But the vermiculite does. It's in so many different building materials, and it's not all asbestos. It's not 100% asbestos, but it's a percentage of asbestos. And anything, 1-2% doesn't matter. It's still asbestos.
So in a normal single-family home or a commercial property included, if the asbestos are in good shape, let's say, do you still recommend that the owners to remove those asbestos so that in the future, if they like to sell the home or something like that, I mean, it will be more attractive and also less concern for the future homeowners.
Yes,
as well.
yes. If they can afford it, it's always good to remove it, because there's a couple of things. You might want to sell your home, so you're going to have to remove it. You might have a leak in one of your pipes, so you're going to have to remove a section of it anyway. So if you're going to do an emergency, something like that, it's going to cost you a lot of money compared to what it would cost to do the job. So it's always good, if you can afford it, to remove it instead of, and if it's in disarray, it's always good to remove it. And have your whole basement cleaned at the same time, and that's all part of our process. So we clean everything when we clean, so that there's no asbestos debris down there.
Because based on my experience, this is that I've seen a lot of homeowners. I mean, they try to save a few bucks, and then with the asbestos, disarray, and they try to use the plastic wraps and just wrap around the pipes and stuff like that.
We see a lot of that.
Yeah, right. And I told them that it's not a good idea to do that. You better invest a little bit. Just number one, make the basement much healthier, in terms of air, and also to prevent any health hazard.
Well, that actual circumstance you talk about is some people will take off their own asbestos, and they don't really know how to clean it properly, and then they'll put a fiberglass insulation on there, and then they might go to sell the house, and we discover, once we look in, that there's still asbestos debris on the pipes. So now, not only did they contaminate, now all their insulation that they put on has to be removed as asbestos now, because it's now touching the asbestos. So the job now costs them more money. So it's not too bright to do that.
That's right. Especially with those huge furnaces that wrap around with asbestos. And I've seen those people try to use different materials, try to wrap around the furnace and try to prevent any deteriorated asbestos from leaking out or
But then once your boiler breaks down and you need to replace it, you still have to remove it, because it's actually illegal to leave an abandoned boiler unit in Massachusetts that it's not being used anymore. If it has asbestos on it, you have to take it. You have to remove it. You have to remove the asbestos and take the boiler out.
Now, from your professional standpoint, I mean, what would you give most homeowners or buyers any tips when they see asbestos removals in terms of consultation, research and stuff like that? I mean. Well,
you can if you go online, you'll find a million different things, and obviously they're not all true.
Right.
So the best thing to do would be to call a company and have them come out and give you an assessment.
Right.
And if you feel comfortable with the people, that's great. I always recommend you get a couple of bids on anything you do. Right. And if you want to just have some simple asbestos testing done, you can also call some consultants who can come in and test some air for you, or do some bulk sampling as well to test the material that you have.
I see. So when they check out the company, let's say, what should they be looking for? Should they be looking for references? Should they be looking for licenses and training and experiences?
Yes,
projects.
All of those things. They should look for all of those things. They should look for references. They make sure that they're licensed with the Department of Labor and Standards, which licenses us in Massachusetts. And they, the website's a website. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. I like the hands-on approach. I like to go out and meet people. I don't want to email people. I want to go out and meet them, look at their home, talk to them, let them feel comfortable with me, that I'm knowledgeable in what we're doing in their home. Because it costs some money, and it's a health hazard, so you want to make sure it's done correctly.
And basically it's free for people to come out and talk to people.
Oh, absolutely, right? Free estimates. Yeah, free estimates all day long.
Okay. Okay, great, good to know. So I want to thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
And it's very helpful information to future home buyers and also homeowners as well. So I want to thank you for that. Okay. Having said that, asbestos were used in the old days to insulated pipes and also certain areas in and out of the property or a home. And mold can be grown in certain areas in and out of the house as well, outside the house as well, and especially in the basement. Therefore, any areas that are susceptible to water and also moisture as well, it is important to have those areas be inspected by professionals. And if you were to remove any asbestos or mold, it is important also to hire professionals to perform the job so that your home can be healthier and also your family can be prevented from health hazard. I want to thank you for being part of the show. See you next time. Yeah, good. You